Sri Chaitanya-charitamrta, Antalila, Chapter 6, Text 236. I believe this, you're not reading this in sequence, is it? Someone chose this verse. Who chose the verse for me to speak on? Okay. Any special reason why you chose this? To save you from unnecessary sense gratification. That's a tall order in one class. All right, so let's read it. It's very easy to read, so we can just go straight into it. Grama kotana shunibe, grama barta na kahibe, bhalo na kaibe ar, bhalo na paribe. Grama kotana shunibe, grama barta na kahibe, bhalo na kaibe ar, bhalo na paribe. All right, I won't read the word for word translation because you can understand it, right? Everything is very clear. Srila Prabhupada's translation. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking to Raghunath Das Goswami when Raghunath Das Goswami requested some instructions regarding his behavior in the renounced order of life. Verse translation: Do not talk like people in general or hear what they say. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. I'll read the next verse also. Amanina yeah, you can show that. Amanina manada hoya Krishna nama shadalabe braje radha Krishna sheva manashe koribe. Do not expect honor, but offer all respect to others. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Purport: Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Amrita Prabha Bhasha that when a man and woman are married, they beget children and are thus entangled in family life. Talk concerning such family life is called Grama Kotha. A person in the renounced order never indulges in either hearing or talking about such subjects. He should not eat palatable dishes, since that is unfit for a person in the renounced order. He should show all respect to others, but should not expect respect for himself. In this way one should chant the holy name of the Lord and think of how to serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalaka Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Shrishtam Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagatam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tamnatosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tine Smarane Hoy Bigna Binashan Anayashi Hoy Nijavan Chita Puran Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As indicated in the purport which Srila Prabhupada gives, he's quoting Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is inevitable for married people to speak Gramya Katha, matters concerning the gram. The gram in this case, which literally means conglomeration. When people come together, then there is... You translating that into Russian? For who? Okay. Is it being recorded? Good. Man is a social animal. I don't know who some English writer wrote that, and Srila Prabhupada would quote that. And it's pretty much axiomatic. Do you all know what axiomatic means? It means self-evident. Though there are some who go away from human society, but they are very rare. So when people come together, there's some kind of social interaction, inevitably. And different people do different things in society. In modern society, it's very complex, unnecessarily complex. But there has to be discussion for the society to run on. And there has to be some level of trust, or at least friendship, or trust at some level, that when you meet someone in the street, that they're not going to shoot you dead. Now that's becoming increasingly hard to trust in the United States of America. But generally we trust that other people won't attack us, and neighbors, they'll say, when they happen across each other, we'll say, "Good morning, how are you? I hope you're well." They don't really care, but, well, especially in the modern age, people don't care. But they say things like that. And next door neighbors, if you know what such a thing is, because in the modern cities, people live in apartments and they live next door to each other. They don't talk to each other, and they don't know each other's names. And in the village, there's not really next door neighbors, but just everyone is neighbor, so to speak. And the children will run in and out of different houses playing. They don't see any big difference between their parents' house and that of others. But there will be interactions. For instance, you didn't tie up your cow properly, and so the cow escaped and has eaten so many of my crops. And then you beat the cow to send the cow out, and then there's a neighborhood dispute. And such things happen, so there has to be a gram panchayat or some such thing to solve such disputes. And in this way, Gramya Katha will go on. There has to be. It's unavoidable. When we're living in the gram, which means people living together, there has to be some discussion of how we live together. And there may be some such discussion, just like, Kim on Atsen, how are you? Kaise ho, how are you? And you say, well, I don't know in Kolkata, but in the Bengali villages, people used to share their information about how they're passing stool and the color of their stool, and if there are worms in their stool, is a major, just something, conversation point. And in England, traditionally, you talk about the weather. It's a nice day today, isn't it? Yeah, but there's rain expected, and this way, it's just for making some nice feeling or social interaction. That people, they don't just interact like robots on practical level, but they like to have some chit-chat, just to be friendly. These instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving to Raghunath Das is especially for him in the renounced order of life. Vairagi, the word is used, vairagi, one who has left the mainstream human society to concentrate on spiritual advancement. So such a person is advised not to hear such talks and not to speak them yourself. Don't get involved in them. The Vairagi is also advised, or actually ordered here by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, don't eat well and don't dress well. Vairagya means non-attachment. So don't eat well and don't dress well. It looks ludicrous if a person who's supposed to be a Vairagi is dressed up in fancy clothes, like Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, right? He dressed up in fancy clothes, didn't he? Right? Did he or didn't he? No, he did. You don't believe me? Well, it is recounted that one time, you know this? You're nodding your head. One time he did dress up in fancy clothes, shocking everyone. Very nice dhoti. Maybe he knew from his previous life he was said to have been a grain merchant, Vaishya by background. So he said he did this as a way of making a point. He said it's better to dress in fine clothes and be a gentleman, grihasta, than to pose oneself as a vairagi and have illicit sex, as was common in Navadvipa at the time. So it was a very striking way of making a point. No doubt the talk went all around the town that Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji is dressed in fancy clothes. No, I don't believe it. Why did he do that? And then the message would go out. But generally he is in the recent times the very symbol of Vairagya, Sakshad Vairagya Murti, directly the manifestation of renunciation. And he was renounced in such a way that is inimitable. And persons who tried to live with him and imitate him, they couldn't. Some would for a short time, and then they would capitulate in several cases into gross sense gratification. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who he accepted as his disciple, was living with or in the vicinity of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj for several years before he accepted sannyas, and living at the same level of renunciation without capitulating into sense gratification. He followed all this, chanting the holy name day and night, even though he was from a comfortable middle-class Kolkata background. He lived in a hut of which he made himself in Mayapur and was chanting day and night, in the cold, in the heat, in the rainy season. And even to live in Mayapur in those days was very difficult, because what was there? Nothing. Well, there were some fields. There was the Muslim village of Mayapur, but that wasn't where Siddhanta Saraswati was living. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur constructed one temple, but it's not the temple that you see now. It was just one small building. Yeah, at the Jogaput. That's right. But it's not the building you see now. That was constructed later. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was living a life of extreme renunciation, chanting the holy names day and night. Then he took sannyas. That's a step down from being a vairagi. He explained that. Vairagya means you leave everything. It means you leave society. You leave the varnashram system. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, several times, we have here in Chaitanya-charitamrta, he rejected the varnashram system as external to pure devotional service. But sannyas is a position within devotional service. Hare Krishna. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who was criticized for this, said that, well, we're accepting this position of sannyas to show our subservience to those who are real vairagis, because we're not on that level, we're aiming at that level. But we're not there. And for his sannyas, he accepted sannyas for the sake of preaching, seeing, well, he didn't actually state this as far as I know, but it seems deducible that the Ram Krishna mission had become well accepted with their meat-eating sannyasis. But that didn't bother Bengalis, because they didn't find anything wrong in meat-eating per se. You can renounce everything, including the rules of sannyas, and be a sannyas. Anyway, we're not supposed to criticize. Okay, I guess that has to be edited out. Anyway, he saw the Ramakrishna mission, sannyasis were respected, and they had an organization for propagating what they were doing. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, actually it was the idea of, so we're told, and that is accepted, that was the idea of Kunja Bihari Vidyabhushan, who was previously a follower of Ramakrishna mission, to organize in such a way. So how can someone living in Mayapur, who's supposed to be renounced, leave Mayapur, or even in Mayapur, build a big temple, have an organization, go to Kolkata and have followers, and then there's going to be Gramya Katha. There's going to be talk of legal matters, land acquisition matters, how to deal with the neighbors who are harassing us. We have to print books, we need money, how are we going to get money? We're going to be talking about things like that. That's Gramya Katha. And if we go dressed like Vairagis, then who's going to listen to us? Because there was so much deprecation of Vaishnavas in Bengal at the time, among respectable, educated people, taking a cue, initially it seems, from the British, who deplored illicit sex in the name of religion, as going on in the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and others picked this up. Though the leading Bengalis were British educated, those who were influential in society, and they all adopted this and said that this Vaishnava religion is so bad because it encourages illicit sex in the name of religion. So if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had gone as a Vairagi, looking like that, then no one would have respected him, they would have disrespected him. So he took the dress similar to that of the Ramakrishna Mission sannyasis, who were respected in Bengali society. And he preached Krishna consciousness, also speaking against the fallen so-called renunciants. Now, how can you do that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Gramya Katana Kahibe, Grama Bharata na Grama Katana Shunibe, Grama Katana Kahibe, Bhalo na Kaibe? But you'll see there are photos of Siddhanta Saraswati with a hybrid kind of dress. The dress of a sannyasi, and then an English-style long coat, Indian-style leather shoes, socks, which even when I first came to Kolkata in 1976, we didn't see anyone wearing socks, except maybe in the Polish embassy next door. Yeah, they would have worn. And then turban, which is Indian, but very plushly dressed, no doubt. So he's violating this rule. On what basis can he do that? He's supposed to be renounced, but he's breaking all the rules. Well, he was doing this of thinking of Krishna and chanting the holy names of Krishna. But what about do not expect honor? He did all this so that people would honor him. Because if they don't respect you, how will they listen to your message? So how did he justify all this? On the basis of Rupa Goswami, anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayanjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe Yukta-vairagya muchyate. That at heart one is unattached to anything, but one sees everything in relation to Krishna and uses everything in Krishna's service. So everything can be used in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada even said that the atom bomb can be used in Krishna's service. I can't imagine how, but Srila Prabhupada said it. So let's not discuss that now. But the idea that everything can be used in Krishna's service means Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that all the good things of the world should be used by Vaishnavas, which it just seems to be just the opposite. But again, for the sake of preaching. Now, if we don't have opulent temples, then no one will take us seriously. One reason why ISKCON is taken seriously in India at the present time is because we have big temples. Otherwise, it could have been forgotten by now. Srila Prabhupada, during the construction of Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, that was over 50 years ago, because it's just coming up, the 50th anniversary of the opening. So he was asked, why are you building an opulent temple when the 6 Goswamis here in Vrindavan, they would live under a tree every night? And Srila Prabhupada said, I can sit under a tree and speak, but you won't come and hear. You won't be interested. This is for you, to attract you. And he also wanted to make facilities for his Western disciples, who he said couldn't be expected to live at the level that Indians are accustomed to live. Nowadays, Indians also can't live at the same level that they used to. If the electricity goes off and there's no electric fan, and it doesn't go off much nowadays. It used to be, it didn't come on much. Even if there was an electric connection, it didn't come on much. But they were used to such a life of difficulty. But Westerners are not used to that. And Srila Prabhupada, in his preaching in the West, one of his main attractions was feeding opulent prasadam to everyone who came. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bhalo na khaibe. But Srila Prabhupada understood that these people, you just can't take them immediately to the level of Raghunath Das Goswami. And he even warned, don't try to imitate. Take prasad, we should come to the level. In the beginning, it may be just feed them. Srila Prabhupada would personally feed newcomers. But after some time, he instructed, well, actually you should control your eating. Don't eat too much. Sannyasis shouldn't eat nice food, but then everyone wants to feed them. At least the devotees want to feed them, and they bring the Mahaprasad plate. That is a quandary that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also faced, because the devotees wanted to feed him with opulent food. But he said, I'm a sannyasi, I can't. It's not right for me to eat opulent food. But usually he would submit to the desire of his devotees who wanted to feed him so many nice foods. And he was criticized for that at least once by Amogha, the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The point is that at heart, the first point, anasaktasya vishayan, one should not be attached to all these things. We see that in the personality of Srila Prabhupada, that he had very opulent quarters in several places. In Bombay, it was just almost ready, shortly before Srila Prabhupada passed away. In London, in Melbourne, in Mayapur, not very opulent, but it was impressive that there was such a big building at the time. Now there are so many more bigger buildings in Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada had a skyscraper building in New York, Los Angeles, very nice building. Srila Prabhupada's quarters was small in Los Angeles, but he had a nice garden next to that where professors and other leading persons would come. Detroit, Srila Prabhupada had a very opulent place there, and leaders of the local community would come to meet Srila Prabhupada. So he used that for preaching. that if you have a very opulent facilities, then you can invite respectable people, people who are respected in human society, people who are influential, the kind of people that we want to communicate the message of Krishna consciousness to. But then we see that Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't attached to it at all. Early 1977, he spent 10 days or 2 weeks in Bhubaneswar in a little hut, little one-room mud hut with a thatched roof. And he would take a lota and go in the field for passing stool, take bath at the tube well. He was quite happy. Actually, he said, personally I prefer this. This is in the mode of goodness. But for preaching, we have to have opulent facilities. So this point, we should not be attached, but use everything for Krishna. And our preaching movement is going on like that to the present day. But there can be a problem. You look like Nrsimhadev about to jump. You're sitting like this, looking like a lion about to jump. Sit properly! I can do so easily because I have a support. But there are problems. Why people take to vairagya in the traditional sense? Very simple. Having nothing. Maybe the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Kopin Kanta. These were their possessions. Maybe Kamandala also. It's ka. Kopin and Kanta is for the winter. You need that. I think you don't have that in Bengal. In the villages, they may still have. In the poor villages, they may still have. You know what that means? Kanta, Bengali word. It means when all the cloth gets torn, you don't just throw it away, but you keep it, and then you can make one, just like a leap out of old cloth, quilt. And that's called a kanta. You stuff it with old cloth, which can also use for wiping the floor. And there are other things also, which I won't say. So they had no possessions. They had no residence. They would live under a different tree, or Sanatana Goswami, he stayed for some time near Manas Sarovar, and Rupa Goswami stayed for some time at Nandagram, but very, very simple. Then less problems. People, they like to have a big building, and if you have a big building, then you have to have so many servants, you have to manage them all, then you have to have a manager, and the manager, you have to watch that he's not cheating you. So many headaches come. In acquiring wealth, there's effort and headache and competition and envy, exploitation may be there. And when you have wealth, it's again a headache. How to protect it from thieves, from the government, from your family members. Your children want you to die so they can get the inheritance. So many headaches. And more with modern currency, because you're always afraid that the government might devalue the currency or remove notes out of circulation, or anyway, how can you keep up with inflation? So many headaches. So living simply removes those headaches. And if you are a mani, then you don't care. People may insult you and you just don't care, that's all. Generally, you don't live among other people, and they will insult you. Who is this irresponsible fellow? He just left. They criticized Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So he had a widowed mother, young wife, newly married, no children, just left them. So they're criticized. Living simply is very simple. It's truism. But then, if we are to preach Krishna consciousness, then we may need more, or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati took that initiative to start something like a movement. Yeah, it was a movement, although he tried to keep things as simple as possible, without complex management or organization. And Srila Prabhupada did also. He wanted to keep the management simple. GBC, and then who has to oversee the activities, and then the Tamil president, and there's a secretary, and there's a treasurer, and that's it. It wasn't very complex management. Once George Harrison asked Srila Prabhupada about what will you do when this movement spreads more and more. It'll be like corporate management. Prabhupada said, no, we have the GBC and they'll oversee it, that's all. It seems that Srila Prabhupada wasn't in favor of very complex management systems. He wanted to think and keep things as simple as possible. And GBC members, he said, their main duty is to go around the temples and see that the regulative principles are being followed, things are clean, devotees are fully engaged, and they themselves should go on Sankirtan. Srila Prabhupada said the duties of the GBC member. And keep accounts, see their account, all these things. So he wanted to keep it as simple as possible, although often we find it's not simple to keep things simple, because we live in a complex world, and then the laws of the state we have to comply with, and the laws may change, just like you may remember a few years ago GST was introduced, and then all of a sudden had to rethink and revamp so many things. So it becomes complex. But the general principle is that even if we live in opulence, we shouldn't be attached to it. We should understand everything is meant for Krishna's service. Yeah, problems come with money, and problems come with people. When we have more people, there are more problems. Unless they're Paramahamsas. But then if they were Paramahamsas, we wouldn't need to preach, would we? And then in the brahmachari ashram, things should be quite simple, because brahmacharis don't have many needs. But then you have to preach. Preach means you have to go broadly, and there's congregation, and congregation means complication, because they have such complex lives, and they can't be, at least superficially, they can't be on the same level of detachment as brahmacharis and sannyasis are, because they do have material responsibilities which they have to oversee, and it takes up so much of their time and energy. And from the broader society, they're getting one message, which is work hard, make money, enjoy life. And from the devotees, they're getting a message, serve Krishna, understand everything in this material world is temporary. There's no real meaning to anything that's going on in our temporary lives. The real meaning is our eternal relationship with Krishna. And it's hard to get people even to follow basic regulative principles. Especially here in Bengal, it's always been a challenge. The question of fish, what to speak of tea. And we're trying to bring people in and bring them up gradually, but people are attached to these gross sense gratification, sinful things. And even if they're not attached sinfully, they're attached piously to their family duty and so on. And that means that simultaneously they're cultivating material desires and trying to be spiritual. And it can be hard. And how to preach to them can preach like a thunderbolt. It can smash their material illusions, or it may just drive them away altogether. It's a risk. So that's one consideration. Preaching means creating problems. Otherwise, we can just live just like the bowels, they wander around, ding, 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 singing some songs. Are there still any left? Bowels wandering around in the villages? I think the CPI, the Balm Front rule, more or less drove them all out, because they taught the children, if you see any sadhus, throw stones at them and insult them. So the legacy of Jyoti Basu and others. Very sinful kind of people. So they can just wander here and there, ding, 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 playing their ektar and singing some songs which no one can understand, maybe not even themselves. So that's a very simple life. And they have girlfriends, and then they trade them during their melas. They may drop one and pick up another one. Sadhika, not girlfriend, sadhika they're called. And like that, they go on. And then they go to hell. But at least they're living simply. So living simply is not our aim in and of itself. There has to be simple living and high thinking. But what we're talking about here with this preaching, institution, money, buildings, prestige, we're talking about complex living and high thinking. And generally the two things don't go together. But they can go together if there is anasakti, anasaktasya vishayan. If we understand, yataham upayunjataha, nirbandha krishna sambandhe, Yukta-vairagya muchyate. If we understand everything is meant for Krishna's service, everything in this world should be used for Krishna, it's not for my enjoyment, it's for Krishna's enjoyment, then everything can be used in Krishna's service. But another problem can arise is that those who are supposed to be practicing Yukta-vairagya, brahmacharis and sannyasis, are especially meant for this, because there's nothing deplorable if a Grihastha Vaishnava has wealth and a big house and fancy clothes. If you earn by honest means and you give funds for serving Krishna, we're not saying that every Grihastha has to be a poor. If by your fate, you have money, by your business acumen, you have lots of money, there's no objection to that. But for brahmachari, no objection means, again, you shouldn't be attached. You should realize everything's meant for Krishna. And jodi take bahudan tabe hao akinchan vaishnava karo upaka. And use your money for serving Krishna, the Vaishnavas. But those who are coming in as brahmacharis and sannyasis, they also are accepting wealth, honor, nice food. But just by taking red cloth doesn't mean that one becomes free of material desires. So one may become attached to that. It's very dangerous. And eating nice food, that is prescribed for spiritualists, eating opulent food, because there is the jiva udara upasta, warned in the first verse of Upadeshamrita. First of all, the tongue desires nice food, and then you're eating and eating, and you get a sense of pleasure as the stomach fills up more and more and more and more, and then there's pressure on the genital, and by eating so much, one's genitals are agitated. So don't eat well. Eat simple food, sattvic food. But Srila Prabhupada found that for bringing people in the West especially, giving them all palatable food was required. Krishna prasadam, but palatable food. And also, it's not that everyone in India is a vairagi, if you hadn't noticed. People like to come for eating nice food. I first came to India in 1976. We always used to hear how people are starving in India, and then you go out in Bora Bazaar and you see there's so many varieties of food which I'd never dreamed could exist. Anywhere you go, the Bombay chapati, and everywhere, all kinds of food and people eating so many different things. Of course, in those days, there was a lot more poverty in India, and Palona Kaibe was the default for many people. With the influx of Hindus from Bangladesh still hadn't been absorbed. Kolkata was overcrowded. People were living on the streets, literally, living in just some garbage they got together and made little houses. And no one was starving, but malnutrition was there. And in Bangladesh also, in the 1970s. And not everyone could hope to have more than one meal a day. And in the mutts, those who are living by begging, Gauria mutts and this and that, they might have a little rice, they could beg a little rice and maybe make some dal, maybe one chatak of dal. You know, a chatak is a quarter kilo approximately. It used to be used. Chatak, share, all this. A little bit of dal and a big pot of water, and then everyone gets some dal, but there's nothing there really. It's just for show. It's practically just water. And that was common, and maybe they'd find a little shak, something growing wild, and daily rough rice, watery dal, and maybe a little shak, something growing wild. Yeah, and that people would eat that daily, if they could even get that. Now, ISKCON is rich. In the beginning we were poor. Devotees, they used to sometimes in the West, they would, well, that was normal. We'd just go and beg food in the market, and all the food that's going to be thrown away by the vegetable vendors, they would give to us. And in the early days, if they would get some watermelon, cut that and eat the inside part, and then the outside part, the rind, the chilka, they'd cut that and cook it as sabji. Ever heard of that? No. Sometimes people make from Loki, they use that. They make some some sabji or chutney or something like that. So in the beginning days, ISKCON was poor, and now it's rich, and it's never rich enough because we always want more money, right? And then we may become enamored by that also, and leaders are always pushing, you have to collect more money and have targets. What do they call that? Goals, aims? What's that called? They give you a target. You have to collect this much money, then you have to go and harass people to give money. And dealing with money means we may become money-oriented, and we think that someone who's earning more money, or a temple president who's able to bring in more money, must be a better temple president than those who don't, which may be true in some ways. But we should remember that our aim is not to have money and build buildings. That's only a means to the goal, and we're supposed to be people-oriented and not money-oriented. But the tendency may be to forget that. And with money, the two things, they tend to come together. Kanaka kamini. We're always warned about the dangers of kanak, gold, money, and then kamini, women, especially seeing women as desirable objects for sense gratification. So that may be there also, because if material desires, it may be in the name of Yukta-vairagya, but if material desires are increasing on one's, it's not that we're going to become greedy for money and not have other material desires. It's not going to be on one trajectory only. From greed that comes all kinds of material desires. Greed for money, of course, some people collect more and more money and they don't use it at all. They just stack it away. Sometimes you find someone, you think they're a beggar, and when they die you find out they have crores in the bank. But the desire to show off your wealth and enjoy, actually that also, I'm talking nostalgia. Old people talk about the past. So here in the 1970s in Kolkata, we used to see the Marwaris, they lots of money, Marwari businessmen. Many of them had lots of money, but they didn't show it off. They dress simply, dhoti and kurta, maybe have a gold ring or something, and they would eat nicely. They would live, usually joint family, big, but not showing off their money and not spending excessively. And excess money, they'd put it back into the business, and they'd give charity also. So that principle was there. Dealing with wealth was there in Vedic culture. How to deal with it in a pious way. By giving, you can live comfortably, but you have to live according to dharma. You don't spend it for sense gratification. Of course, that was there also in the old culture. The British, they call them, what do they call them? Nautch girls. That means nartinis. The dancing girls. They're also there. Some people would watch them and they doubled up as prostitutes. So it was there. But respectable people, they don't indulge in such things. There are different levels. But here we're talking about vairagis. Don't talk nonsense. How to keep the line. When we're talking about legal matters, then we may have to be someone in ISKCON should understand legal matters very well, like the temple president of this temple, Dayaram Prabhu. He understands legal matters very well, by necessity. Someone is required for that. Someone should know how to oversee accountants so they don't cheat us, because they can do. Someone should be expert in all these things. And it's so many different, but then where do you draw the line? You're an expert in computer stuff, and then you then you have to discuss about computers and this and that. Where do you draw the line? You may spend 1 hour discussing with someone about some software, some new software or something like this. That may be very useful for your service, but then how far do you go on? What's the solution to all this? The solution is that at least we should all rise early, chant 16 rounds, discuss Krishna consciousness in the classes, keep everything in perspective, and listen to instructions like this. That nice food may be there, Krishna Prasad, and in one purport here in Chaitanya-charitamrta, Srila Prabhupada says that the Mahaprasad that's for the grihastas, not for the sannyasis. Sannyasis should eat simply. As a sannyasi, it's really hard to eat simply because everyone they want to come out of affection, they want to cook so many things and feed you. But then the human body doesn't run on rich food all the time. Maybe Srila Prabhupada had that once a week, there can be a feast. This is in the West. Otherwise, daily, Prabhupada said that we could have chapatis, dal, rice, sabji. That was it. Simple. Daily. And once a week, a feast. And that way, the body remains nourished, but not overstimulated with foods which... When I was new in this movement in London, I asked the temple president in our central London temple, in which it was famous for the prasad, was so famous that devotees traveling from America to India would stop over in London for darshan of Radha-Landanishwara, the deity, and to take the prasadam also. Well, it was famous. So I saw on Sundays that the devotees, they would cram their bellies, gola prajanto, up to the throat, and maybe even a little more also. And then they'd, and they'd be out of action unless you take them out on, sometimes they'd take them out on Harinam Sankirtan, they'd be trying to chant with their bellies full. But anyway, I asked the temple president, why when the devotees, they just completely stuff themselves and why did Prabhupada allow this? And he immediately replied without any hesitation, because if he didn't, we'd all bloop, which means we'd all leave if we didn't have this. So we're not on the level of Raghunath Das. We can't imitate, but we should remember this, that we may be interested in so many things. And if we're preaching in society, it is also good to keep abreast of various goings on in society. Again in London, I strictly followed. I didn't read the newspaper, nothing. I didn't know anything about the news. And one guest came to the temple, and I was talking with him, and he mentioned the name of someone. And he said, Mr. Callahan. I said, who? He said, Mr. Callahan. I said, who? And he said, the Prime Minister of this country. I didn't know the name of the Prime Minister. And he thought I was completely stupid because I didn't know. And then what am I going to speak to him? So it is good to keep abreast of some such things. But how far do you go? At the time of death, we don't want to... For all we may respect the present Prime Minister of this country, we don't want to remember him at the time of death. We want to remember Krishna. So keeping a balance can be very hard because it can be interesting to know what's going on in Israel. It's very interesting. Hear all the news. What's going on in Ukraine? Very interesting. What's going on in the upcoming elections in India? There's always upcoming elections somewhere in India. So it can be interesting. Who's going to win? And afterwards they analyze why such and such party lost and this and this and that. How far do you get into it? Again, maybe someone from the Krishna conscious side does need to do that. But always remember, our goal is Krishna. And everything in the material world, if it's not utilized in Krishna's service, is going to drag us away from Krishna. So the same thing can uplift us or degrade us. Narad Muni says, does a thing which caused disease also not cure us if applied therapeutically? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that you can get indigestion from eating too many rich milk products. But the cure for indigestion is to take another milk product, yogurt. So applied therapeutically, we can have talk of this world, but always seeing the relation with Krishna. But we should also not just presume that I see the relationship with Krishna, but we have to do our daily sadhana, reading, and keep everything. Keep our mind clean and pure so that we don't become overly attracted by everything in this world. Otherwise, in the name of Yukta-vairagya, we may, unknown even to ourselves, be pursuing sense gratification. That's possible. I have to eat all this nice food so I can be strong enough to go and preach. Well, that's also true. But then how far do you take it? Then all the Mahaprasad should come to me because I'm doing the best preaching. How far do we take it? It can be a fine line. Maya can be very deceptive. Hare Krishna. I'll finish there as we're going over time. And if anyone has any questions, they can. Oh, I remember one thing I should say is that sannyasis are known as Maharaj, but you're not meant to live like a Maharaj. The traditional Maharaj with 20 wives, opulent building. They may do, not wives, but they may live in an opulent building for the sake of preaching. And sannyasis, they may have female disciples and this and that, but should always be very, very careful. The rules apply everywhere, for everyone. For grihastas also. For men and women. There has to be some separation, not mixing up. I just noticed in Mangalati this morning, it came to my mind, I'll say it now, that there's this divider in Mangalati, and men are very close to women because it's a small temple room. But at least the brahmacharis should stand away from the divider so they're not standing right next to a devotee in a woman's body, as we say. Okay, so shall I take one or two questions, or who's... Well, no one said no, so all right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Okay, I already said it, so now you don't have to say it.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to the assembled devotees. I have a question.
I know. What is it?
In today's age of the social media, how can we appreciate the nectarian statement of Mahaprabhu Lord Chaitanya that we are discussing today? In today's age of social media and the aftermath of being social media, the fear of missing out and other such symptoms
the fear
of social
of
media.
What?
Fear of missing out.
Missing out.
Due to social media.
Well, social media doesn't make any difference to the principles which I just spoke on. The same principle applies. Use it in Krishna's service if you can. If not, leave it and don't overindulge. any more than you need to. That's all. It's the same. There's nothing. It's not that the principles of spiritual life changed because of social media. It's the same basic principles. Okay. So one question here.
Guru Maharaj, I want to say, check one thing, that since this is our Krishna consciousness movement, and it is like a Vaikuntha, means we know Krishna is there, it's a Vaikuntha atmosphere. And in Vaikuntha means automatically there will be opulences.
Ladies are sitting with their backs to Jagannath. That's not good. Somehow you have to sit without showing your back.
So our means where there is Krishna, it is a Vaikuntha atmosphere, means opulence will automatically follow. So in this case, like if
opulence will automatically follow, well, not exactly automatically. That's up to Krishna, isn't it? He may or may not give. Yeah.
So in Vaikuntha atmosphere, generally means the food, the upbringings will be better than the rest of the world, means some material world, definitely.
When we say that the temple is like Vaikuntha, that doesn't mean that we're trying to make an atmosphere for our enjoyment. That means it's like Vaikuntha because the attitude is one of service to Radha and Krishna. That's why it's like Vaikuntha. Not that we're enjoying like. We don't think it's like Vaikuntha, so we have to make it enjoyable for us. Opulent food will be there, we offer to Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj ji, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, my question is that as students who go out to schools and colleges to study, and there we mix up with so many...
Yeah, it's the same question asked again and again and again. Okay, but it's still for you it's a question. Okay, say it.
We have to mix with so many others who are not into the devotional movements, and then how do we, restrict ourselves from indulging in Gramya Katha and this thing?
You can go to the college in Tilak, if they allow you, and a dhoti, and then they'll say you're mad, and they won't want to talk to you. No, seriously. If you're brave enough and they allow it, why not? What does Bhaktivinoda Thakur say? That Bishoye amare pagala balaya. Oh, what does he say? Dibek Duli. I can't remember. Pagala balaya amake Dibek Duli, something like this. The materialistic people call me mad and throw dirt on me. And he's praying for that. Gurudev, Kobe Tava Karuna Prakashi. When I have mercy of my Guru, the materialistic people will call me mad and throw dirt on me. Ongete Dibek Duli. That's one suggestion. If whatever they say, you just talk about Krishna to them, then they'll go away from you. Or maybe they'll come. Yeah, go on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in lecture you shared that in guise of Yukta-vairagya, sometimes we might try to get our sense gratification. So related to this, my question is that how to recognize our own rascaldom and take care of it.
How to recognize our own rascaldom and take care of it. Introspection is required. We should also be open to others pointing out such things. Okay, one question from one Mataji and then we'll finish. There's one question over here.